Hi, I'm Coach Mia, and welcome to our Inspiring Authors virtual show. November 1st was National Authors Day, and in honor of that, today I have the honor of presenting a special guest, a dear friend and author, editor, and ghostwriter, Dr. Ruth Baskerville, who has written, co written, and ghostwritten many books, 50 plus to be exact. Now, you guys are in a having a, I'm sorry, you are in for a treat tonight. Have you heard the books Hoodless Clan? Or I would scream if I could get this dick out of my mouth. Don't be shocked. It's not what you think. Stay tuned, and before it's over, Dr. Ruth will explain. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of authoring, let me introduce my outstanding co host, a soul therapist, a psycho spiritual coach and consultant, holistic educator, and author of the book, The Dis-Ease is the Cure. His name is Lenny Birch, coming to you from Harlem, New York. He is the Dean of Faculty of Quayle Works, a self empowerment organization. Lenny, welcome to the show. And I see you've been doing some reading lately.
Well, not too much. Today, uh, in acknowledging National Authors Day, we're taking this time to both honor a seasoned author in particular and many in general, and we want to inspire up and coming or would be writers also. Our special guest, Dr. Ruth, is a best-selling author who, like many authors, she spent countless hours writing interesting books or ghostwriting for future authors. She will talk about what it takes to effectively tell, write, and publish your story. Like revered authors from the renowned French philosopher Michael Foucault to James Baldwin, Dr. Ruth will answer the question, what is an author? And what hurdles do you have to clear to be a successful one?
Yes, Len. And today, Dr. Ruth is sharing her insights on how to get inspired, develop different types of writing skills, develop an author's brand, and secure available resources to get to the next level. Now, for Dr. Ruth, it's about becoming an author who writes books that are phenomenal, published, polished, I'm sorry, tongue-tied today, polished and packed with content that readers will truly want to purchase and connect with. So, Lenny, let's get started.
Okay, so if you are considering becoming a published author, you probably have or will be asking the following questions. What are the obstacles? Where do I start or take it to the next level if I'm already an author? Do I really have something worthwhile to say? Am I ready to put in the energy necessary to do the needed research and work? Writing is work. I have a story, but how can I get someone to put it together? Like a ghostwriter, maybe? How do I choose a publisher, or should I self-publish? And how? What is the secret to becoming a best-selling author? Do I need to book speaking engagements to promote my book? Can the title of my book make it or break me? Now, these are a lot of obstacles. Dr. Ruth, being so experienced, will focus on what's most important. So listen carefully. Today, she will answer as many of these questions as she can. She can answer all of them, but there's so many, but she'll be prioritizing. You can text your question live during the show, and we will attempt to get to all questions as time allows. So let's begin with choosing the right title. Mia?
Yes, let's start by removing the elephant in the room because inquiring minds want to know, like me. How in the world did you come up with or associate with these and other book titles? And how important is it to have a catchy book title? Let's start with the last book she edited. I Would Scream If I Could Get This Dick Out of My Mouth by Free Harris. A lot of authors probably would not touch this title. Dr. Ruth, before you were about to edit this book, what was going through your mind?
Well, you're right. It's quite a title. It's very unusual and the most intriguing of over 50 titles that I have, helped writers achieve. Free Harris brought this title to me, and she got this title, believe it or not, from God. I'll let her tell you more about that. But if you look carefully at the cover, the word dick is filled with powerful rulers from all ages, including some presidents of the United States that would surprise you. That if you look really carefully at Dick, you're going to see a lot of names. And these names are people who have sought to mute, mostly women, but to mute us so that we would never tell our truth. Well, with Free Harris actually telling all her truth in this particular book, she's unmuted, and there are things at the back of each chapter that help us read so that we're unmuted, and finally we can scream. So by the time, I know you have an interview with her coming, but by the time that you get to have enough dialogue with Free Harris, you will say, that is the only and the most perfect title possible. I would scream if I could get this dick out of my mouth.
Yes, I truly get it.
Well, Dr. Ruth, did you actually incur any resistance or shock to this title?
Oh, most definitely. People who were very much fans of me as a, ghostwriter, author, fans of Free, were squeamish. They said, I love you, but I don't want that book. People in the religious community, I can't take this to my church. But the truth is, it's all of that. There's every kind of discipline in it, but you got to you got to get past the title, like never judge a book by its cover. You got to do a little of that.
I did have a friend who said that he was attracted by the title, but what turned him off was when it went from the title to religion, and Machiavelli had no problem with. Have you encountered anything like that?
A little bit, mostly not so much religion, although God is definitely in Free's life. Since she was like a very small child, she's actually heard God speak to her. I've not had that, but I have had people speak to me, and I know God is trying to minister something. So the religious piece hasn't been as much of a stumbling block as people don't want to crack the book based on the title. Once you crack the book, you'll see religion, economics, agriculture, her life story. It's just a beautiful cornucopia. So.
Yeah, I suppose that underscores the need to really have a good marketing campaign so you can frame the book and not let others frame it. But in your case, let me congratulate you.
Actually,
no, go ahead.
She has a like a one-page, kind of a synopsis, and in it, the bulk of it deals with this is what the title really means. Now, if you open this book, you're going to get all of this. So it's like a package. When you open it, my goodness, the gift is priceless.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, speaking of gifts, let me congratulate you on publishing your 54th book with 5 more in the pipeline. What an achievement. You were 63 years young when you wrote your first book, Hoodless Clan, about a charter school principal who was a 38-year veteran educator with a stellar record. That sounds like an undercover racist hood. What is it all about, and how did it come about?
Well, actually, this is my story. But as you know, when you want to write and not have anyone kind of come after you, though you could prove everything, you change the names of everything. And I did, the town, the people, and all of that. But it really was my story. I was a charter principal in another state. And the interesting thing is they hired me. Now, I'm multiracial, so perhaps they mistook my race. But this group, this governing board, which comes with a charter school, that's supposed to look out for all the kids, literally walked in my office and said, we don't want the Black kids in the gifted classes with ours. And this is 2007. This is not Jim Crow. And so, of course, my response, which first I had to get over the shock, was I will love the whole 1,000 kids in this school. And as long as I'm the principal, I'll take care of everyone. And all they heard was, as long as you're the principal. So there was this 4-year campaign to just destroy me. Literally, that was the goal. And I did it, finally retire. But first I was fired, I was retired, I was rehired. They had to make me whole. We do have the ability to get lawyers, we Black people, and they didn't count on a fight. In any case, I left that state, came back home to my home in Florida, and it was my husband who said, you should write, like for therapy, but I have been gifted with the ability to write my whole life. And then he said, honey, you got a book. And just like that, he wouldn't let anyone come and play with me. I wrote. And we were 90 pages into the book. I didn't have a title. And just like that, I said, these guys don't even wear hoods. And just like my husband said, hoodless clan. So that's where that title came from.
There's a lot of hoodless clans out here today.
Oh, yes.
It definitely is. Now let's get to your second book title, which is Finding Humor in Grief. I've never seen grief and humor used in the same sentence, let alone a book title. Now, Dr. Ruth, some people would be appalled at association grief with humor, and especially when they're still mourning. What say you?
Humor has followed me all my life. I just wake up and things happen and they just wind up being funny. Well, I was 45 years married since I was 19, and my husband passed away suddenly. And I was just devastated. I didn't know if I could put a foot in front of the other. And my only child, my daughter, came right away. My siblings wrapped around me and all of this. And he wanted to be cremated. So the homegoing ceremony was going to be like in 5 days. And the two of us went to pick up the urn, which they had ready. And she said, do you think we should look in the urn to see the ashes? And I said, oh no, I think they seal those things. And she said, no, mommy, because people scatter ashes, to the winds. And so we pulled over, we were crying and crying. I gently loosened the urn, and there was a big bag, and in it was this pure white powder. It was like a cross between sugar and flour. And I said, dear, your father was a proud Black man all his life. And if he knew that he was reduced to a pure white powder, Daddy would not be pleased. And in that instant, we were crying. In that instant, we just had to stop and laugh. And it just caused me to write, really just pouring out my grief. So the book, Finding Humor in Grief, is very sad and very funny. And you have to find those kernels, Mia, that help you get through just pure grief. It helps you not get under the covers and you don't want to see anybody, you just want to die. It helps you because there is always humor. It's not like slap your thigh comedy. It's just like that subtle, in the moment. I knew that God gave it to us, like, hey, this is a moment of celebration of a life well lived. So Finding Humor in Grief became the title. And I got the cover design because I loved drama theater all my life. And I was a drama coach and so on. And I thought, the drama faces, they're perfect. And that's how Finding Humor in Grief came about.
Well, that kind of reminds me of something happened in my youth with a nephew who got a lot of grief from my mother, his grandmother, because she said that he walked around like he was a Philadelphia lawyer. And it occurred to me that, well, he became in law enforcement. So, we've all been writers since grade school. So when do you actually become an author or a writer?
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with you so much, Lenny. We're all writers. We're all authors. Here's the difference in who publishes and who doesn't. We have to ask the question, who needs to hear this? To just say, I grew up and then I went off to school, I got married, I lived, that's not a story. But a story is something where you say, who needs to hear it? So when people call me up and say, I got this burning thing. I must birth it out. My first question is, to whom? Who needs to hear your story? And that helps them begin to focus. And I always start with, take a little dollar pad, from the dollar store, walk around for 2 weeks, keep it like a baby in the bathroom, in the bedroom, everywhere you go. And just as you're thinking about writing, take that little pad and put 2 or 3 words on each page, because you know what those 2 or 3 words, Christmas of 2005, it's a big deal to me for whatever reason, write it down. And then after 2 weeks, rip those little sheets, and you start to make stacks of stuff that's the same. And you will maybe surprise yourself by saying, oh, I had no idea that the most important the most important thing, the highest stack, if you will, is this. I was thinking of writing about that. But it sort of comes out of you by something as visual as stacks. Go to the computer with your little stacks. Don't think of grammar. Don't do anything. Just pour out paper after paper after paper. And then we have something that takes shape, because you thought, who needs to hear this? So we do all of this kind of stuff. And yeah, go ahead.
I'm struck by who needs to hear it, because my writing coach used to keep hammering away at, you got to know what their pain points are. If you want to know who wants to hear it, you got to know who you're projecting to, and you got to know their pain points. Is that related to, does that come up spontaneously when you put those stacks together?
Some of it does, but I think the most important part, like I consider me the midwife. It's your baby, you're birthing it out, and my job is to help deliver the baby. So what happens is, it's your pain points, and depending on how you write, and that's where a ghostwriter and an editor comes in, but how you tell your story resonates with somebody who says, oh my God, you're speaking to me. And now my pain points are triggered, like finding humor. I can't tell you how many people just read the book and then felt like that was me, that's my life, and yet our lives are nothing the same. You hit the right points by really being authentic in your soul. And that's how it kind of comes out.
Thank you.
As you're saying that, Dr. Ruth, about picking up a book or paper and just start writing, as an editor of the magazine, sometimes I do the same thing as well. And I wake up sometime in the middle, 2 a.m, and I'm jotting something that just came to mind. And then that's it. I might wake up in the morning. Oh, boom. Okay. That's the ending part that I was missing. And then eventually it all comes together. So I could definitely relate to that. Now, going into, just like a business, we have to build a brand to attract our clients, our customers, and even the public. Now, what steps are needed to build a brand and design or illustrate an eye-catching book that people will want to pick up?
Well, I'll tell you, the very first thing anyone does when you go into a bookstore, you go online, the first thing you do, the cover. You must have a graphic designer, not your cousin down the street. He took art in 7th grade. Don't do it. You need a professional person to design your cover, and you pay for that. They will work with you on your image, or you may have a picture. You may want your mother on the cover, but whatever you choose, they'll help shape it. And then they'll give you their professional expertise in terms of dimension. Maybe it's 3D, or there's scenes in the background, color matters. So you get a really good cover, and you'll know it because you'll love it. You'll say, that's it. That is what I want to say. And then the next important thing, of course, is your back cover. Who are you? What do we know about the author? What is a short synopsis of the book? And then, of course, your picture and the ISBN. So that's very important. Branding is like, they discussed it to me as legs. I took a couple of courses in branding, and I'm sad to say I've not done enough with it. But what it is you take your book and the usual, T-shirts, mugs, pens, whatever. But the nice thing of bookmarks, the nice thing about branding as legs is someone somewhere who doesn't know anything about you or your book says, well, what does that mean that it's on your coffee mug? And so you don't even know how far reaching it is that others will say, oh, it's the book, Dr. Ruth. And you get sales from that, you get interest from that, you get speaking engagements. So as much as you can get legs on your work, and you may have to do as I did, you may take a course or you may look it up online, get a little bit of help, talk to someone who seems to be successful. Would you share with me how you branded how did you market your stuff? And people are, most people are willing to share. This is a beautiful stage we're all on, and its center stage is big and wide. And for me, I'll share it in a heartbeat.
So can you just recap what exactly you mean by getting legs?
So, when you think about the body, right? Legs carry you. So if the book is like the body, it's standing or it doesn't do anything. You need those arms and those legs. So it means get that book in other people's eyesight. Get it into it's on somebody's kitchen table. Long story short, I was selling my Rolls Royce, as I had this beautiful car, and I had to sell it as part of my economic downsizing when I became a widow. And the people who flew in from New Mexico, who bought the car within an hour, there on the table was, believe it or not, Finding Humor in Grief. I was bringing it to someone. They looked and said, wow, bought the book. They read it. They went home, and I had my moment of tears in the garage. This was a moment gone, the end of my wealth, and all of that good stuff. And they called me and said, we love the book. We want to bring you to New Mexico to do some book signings for you. All of that. Out of that, don't you know, I went, and don't you know, I was chauffeured in the Rolls Royce. And all of that happened because there was the book, Legs. Who knew? And so as many places as you can get that title, you will have people say, I got to have the book.
Great.
Awesome.
So Mia, the next title?
Oh, that's you, Lenny, with the hardcover.
Oh, the hardcover for the hard hit. Okay.
Yep.
Other than having a hardcover or a paperback book, should an author actually publish in audiobook form also? It seems that many people have a problem reading books in digital formats. It's like people like to read their paper in their hand, like to read their book. Have you found that to be an issue one way or another?
Today, I would say it's definitely an issue. I'm old school. I like the smell of a book. I like the feel of a book. I've not done ebooks or audiobooks, but it is not just a huge market for an author, but a lot of people are not that good at reading, and they also don't have particular amounts of time to devote to reading, but they're in the car a lot. They're going from place to place. They're doing things with their job, with their kids, and they will enjoy an audiobook. Matter of fact, can't wait to get back in the car for the next chapter. So for all of those reasons, yes, explore an audiobook, explore an ebook as well. As opposed to just that. When I speak about legs, there's two more legs, audio and E, so that you reach a different dynamic, a different demographic from the me who will go buy a book.
Thank you.
That is definitely good for, especially on a long, road trip, rather than just, get tired of listening to music. So, hey, why not listen to a good story?
Right.
Now, let's talk about your book title, Beauty for Ashes, which I know that's a very personal book story after the loss of a loved one. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I can. Actually, the front cover for this book is the actual urn. That's my husband's urn. And one of the authors for whom I edited and ghost wrote a little bit of her book, I went to her book signing just to support her. And she wrote in the book she gave me, "You are beauty for ashes." So, of course, I had to look it up. I didn't know that scripture by heart. But Isaiah 61:3, God said, I will take your mourning, your ashes, and give you beauty. I'll give you joy. And I felt like, wow, if she thinks that of me, I must make sure I am that every day. And that's how I got the title, Beauty for Ashes. In fact, the rest of it is from mourning, mourning, to morning, MORNING. And I won medals for all my books, but this one I won for humor, and I hadn't actually entered in humor. This one, I'm 4 years a widow. Now I'm almost 10 now, but I'm 4 years a widow. And suddenly there are 4 men in my life courting me. I'm still 19. I don't know a pickup line. I don't know the market. And it was hilarious, the things that happened to me. And at the same time, God is elevating me spiritually. So it's just a really funny book and very deep. So Beauty for Ashes, that's how I got the title, the cover design, and all the words. Humor. Once again, lots of humor.
All right. Well, let's turn from humor to pain. Dr. Ruth, I can't get through a lot of books. I like to read all the way through. And I've heard that maybe that's because it's not really telling a story. But then again, there's some nonfiction books that are hard to get through. How important is telling a story in writing and different kinds of writing?
You know, for me, the biggest thing that I work with authors on is using all 5 senses. You know, they will tell the story in 13 pages, except the poor reader is completely lost. We don't know the characters. We don't know the relationship of A to B to C. We don't know the scenery, the setting, but you do. So you just rush through and you go, well, I'm done. So I always stop and slow it down. And really, fiction, nonfiction, memoir, it doesn't matter that. The genre doesn't matter. It's that you tap into those senses. When somebody is speaking or doing something, crash, boom, you know, other people who are around are reacting. So well, you need to write all of that. You know, if suddenly something came bursting through the window, where is the window? What happened? What happened to you? What happened to everybody else in the room when that thing burst through the window? So they forget all of that. So you use those 5 senses. And one of the things that I'm especially good at is colorful language, not just humor, but colorful language, so that the reader can say, I see it. And whether you do an audio book or reading a book, I see I feel like I'm in your living room and I'm listening. I get it. So that's what you want. Put the 5 senses, make sure you don't write in a vacuum, slow it down, bring the reader in. If you speak about James in chapter 1 and you don't mention James again until chapter 4, guess what? You have to put a little context. You remember James. And then the reader says, I'm following you. When people put the book down, it's usually because the author has not brought the reader, just like carrying, like let me hold your hand, has not carried the reader all the way through. And that's the difference between a really great book, a page turner. I will tell you that one of my authors, his name is Bishop Richard Langford, he wrote a book called Big Judges, Little Gods. And that book is very much nonfiction, but it is huge. And it's about mystery and trial and the law enforcement and racism and everything. The biggest book I have ever edited, 756 pages. Can you imagine the thickness of that book? Wow. I will tell you, you cannot put it down. It is an absolute page turner, and every page matters. So you will get through a book 6 times the size of what you thought when the writer really engages you.
You may be familiar with Stieg Larsen, who wrote the Millennium triple thing. That is a perfect example of what you're talking about. He was telling me that he was brushing his teeth and something fell off the counter, and I felt it, you know. So I really understand what you're saying. You know, you got to feel and see with all your 5 senses what a person is writing about.
That's right.
Yes, definitely. Now, it's hard to imagine writing, editing, or ghostwriting over 50 books, but you had to start somewhere. What obstacles did you overcome, and was it painful?
As a matter of fact, you know, when I wrote my first book, Hoodless Clan, my husband was my inspiration. We wrote the book in 5 months. And my book, by the way, that particular book is 400 plus pages, like 460. It's just I just poured it out. And when I was finished, I stopped never had a writer's block and so on. But the day we sent it to just one publisher, at that time, I didn't know anything about publishing. And the morning we got the email that the publisher was pleased to accept my manuscript, that's the day my husband died. So he had put me on a path of writing and publishing and book signing. He had put me on that path with Hoodless Clan, but he never got to see me in action. And then, of course, I wrote Finding Humor and Beauty. And so how I got into ghostwriting and all is actually a financial thing. My income was suddenly cut in half. And I thought, oh my goodness, well, how will I do this? And he had a lot of toys, the Rolls was the last. But I sold all these toys. And I remember sitting in the kitchen saying out loud, well, God, do I leave this house? Do I foreclose? What do I do? And I promise you that within like an hour, someone called and said, can you help me write my book? And I said, I can. And those skills, those gifts that I always had, but never did it click in my mind. Like you can monetize it, never clicked. And I tell you, every person, all these 54 and the ones I'm writing for now, the 5, every single author came to me. I never had a chance to advertise or really go after a market. So I know God, I know that he just sent him and sent him and sent him. And what he was really saying is, no, you don't have to, you're going to keep that house. You're going to keep everything and a decent lifestyle, not as elaborate, cut up those 10 credit cards, but you are going to be fine. And not only have I been fine, but my hands have just helped others who have their audiences that I'll never know that need their stories. And I've helped them birth out their books. I never thought that I would be at 54 and climbing. It's just amazing.
Well, a lot of people, they're praying and praying and praying, and they don't feel they get the answer. How is it that God came to you that way? What did you do to attract that insight?
I think I just, I had a pure heart. I wasn't pompous or puffed up. I wasn't trying to maintain a lifestyle that I no longer could maintain, because some people do that and they're miserable. I needed relief. I wanted to be honorable. I loved my neighbors. I certainly didn't want to, bring everybody's value down. And I just prayed. I just literally prayed. And the answer was almost like you and I are speaking, Lenny. It just like that. And they kept coming, and they're still coming.
Well, as a writer myself, I'm sometimes hesitant to write in Ebonics, you know what I mean? Or write the way I speak, you know what I'm saying? How much should we be concerned about using the King's English?
I'll tell you, that is an excellent question. But I have a bit of a racial bias here because, I was an English major. So, of course, I read everybody. And if you know anything about Faulkner, about Twain, they wrote about the South, and they wrote in Southern dialect, which was really substandard English. And everybody thought it was great. They became classics. No one questioned the substandard English. No one held them to account. But Black people, do we write in, Southern drawl? Do we use improper English? Do we have, fractured sentences? Is it an issue? Suddenly for us, it's something we have to think about. And the first thing that came to my mind was Zora Neale Hurston, part of the Harlem Renaissance. And she wrote the most beautiful, descriptive, in dialect discussions of just life. And do you know she died a pauper because we had just becoming of age of who we are. Black is beautiful. We're not looking for, them and D's and does. We don't want to ever know we ever said it like that. And so we took a beautiful author and we diminished her. And fortunately, Alice Walker, who became a Pulitzer Prize winner, pulled Zora Neale literally from the ground and gave her props. And now, of course, we have the festival every year in Eatonville, and she is back on top. And people today love her writing. But what was it? Ebonics at the wrong time. People weren't ready for it. I will tell you that To Take a Righteous Stand, another book that I was the ghostwriter of this one. Reverend Jimmy Perry, who has left us, wrote about the 1930s when the federal government sent all this money to the poor farmers in the South. It was to help them. And of course, in Dothan, Alabama, and probably all over the South, they stole the money, and the government found out about it, and with a vengeance came to Dothan, not to help the Black farmer, no, but you defrauded us, and we want to exact, paying for it. Well, they needed a witness. Now, they were hanging us from trees at that point, but James Arthur Perry said, I'll testify. Well, do you know that James Arthur Perry was illiterate? He couldn't even have written his name to receive the government check. That didn't mean it was fair to have it embezzled. He lost his 92-acre farm. And by the way, the Perry family yet has never gotten that farm back or the value of it. But in the process, I had to write the book. So when it came to James Arthur speaking, I needed Ebonics. And that made the book rich. So where it's appropriate, go for it. Go ahead and use it proudly. And people today, if Zora today were to have written the same book, we would all just gobble it up. I hope that
reminds me then of something which wasn't a book, but it was a TV program called Amos and Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Kingfish would say, what is that going to do? I loved Amos and Andy. I didn't feel like it was demeaning us or something. That's what you're talking about reminds me of.
Mm.
Well, I have kind of mixed feelings about that, only because, they needed that dialogue. I was one of those when I was young. Amos and Andy loved it. I slapped my thigh laughing. But when you get a little deeper into what's behind it, it's that step and fetch it, slovenly Negro, shuffling, trying to get over person that became a persona for a lot of Black people, where people have that misnomer today. Well, Black people don't want anything. If they wanted it, they could do like we did. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and everything. But you see, when you enter a room, the first thing that comes with you is color. It will always come with you. There is no such thing as, I don't see color. Everybody sees color. So because it was so stereotypic, I have an intellectual objection. But just as a human being, I would watch it again in a heartbeat.
Well, the key phrase I heard from you on that is where it's appropriate. Use that kind of languaging, dialect, or whatever, where it's appropriate. Well, just to move on a little bit, in writing a book that I wrote, that This Eases the Cure, I did have a writing coach, and she gave me some profound advice. Because normally my writing is somewhat didactic, and it's kind of dull, I guess. And she said, Len, you got to put some ugly in it. As a newly published writer, they don't know you. You have to find a way to connect with them. So what do you think about that, Dr. Baskerville? And how important is it to have a writing coach or a mentor?
Well, I'll tell you, to me, the word ugly, you got to put some ugly in it, is authenticity. You have to be honest and authentic. People will love you for your honesty. And sometimes, like with Free Harris's book, especially, sometimes that's very painful because, well, who wants to tell their whole life? I don't want everybody knowing that. That's a secret and so on. And even with me, pouring out every single thing, every part of me, it's risky. It's dangerous. Like, how will I be judged? And, you don't want to do it. But I think the ugly in it is that. It is the authentic, genuine, stripped away, raw. There I am, naked before my readers. It's awkward. It's clumsy. I'm shivering. I don't know. But you know what? That's what's going to be connecting with the reader. And that's what I think your coach meant. So I do know how important a mentor is. Anybody who's an aspiring writer, I would say, connect with a writer. Why? Because you get discouraged. Time goes by. You give up. You think, I can't. It's not for me. All kinds of things. Life gets in the way of living. But somebody who can give you that push. And I know me as an editor, ghostwriter, if 10 days go by and I haven't had some communication with an author, Even, I'm someone passed, I'm going to a funeral, whatever it is. But every 10 days or so, they will tell you, all 54, that I gave them a gentle nudge, a little
Mm.
email, a little call. Hello, I should be receiving some manuscript to edit. And if they stick with that and they accept that nudge, that coach like you had, they will publish. They will hit that finish line. And everybody has made it, every single person.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, just to continue on some of my story, which I really appreciate your words of wisdom, because you talk about connecting. It really connects with me. Before I became a serious writer, and as you said earlier, we write all the time, but decided to publish. Back in those days of typewriters and yellow pads, I tore up hundreds of pages before I was satisfied with what I had written. What about writer's block? Have you ever experienced it? And if so, what techniques can we use to overcome it?
Yes, I tell you, praise God, I have been blessed. I have never had writer's block, never had it. Um, but I will tell you, it's very common. People get stuck. But I think part of it is that misinformation that says, "Okay, I'm going to be a writer." I turned my phone off. I got a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and I blocked out everything. I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. I turn on the computer to a white piece of paper, and 2 hours go by, and I wrote the. Well, the reason is there is never an excuse for preparation. You know that expression that says success is 10% inspiration, 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. That is so true. That's why I
Einstein.
say carry that, like what Neale was talking about. Carry that little pad, because you will forget. And it's just like, where's the
Mhm.
baby? Where's the baby? You got it. You are writing all the time, 2 or 3 words. And when you're ready to close off your phone, go to the, now you've got something to say. So,
Uh,
and the other thing is what I do, and I've done this a lot with writers when they get stuck. They're like, I don't know what the next chapter, I can't engage. Is I'll say to them, we'll do a 1 hour session by phone. Call me up, and I type very fast, and I'll say, just talk. Just talk. And as they're talking, they're telling me what's important to them. They don't know it when they start. And I just scribe, bing, 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 bing. And then when I clean that up and kick it back, they go, I'm back in the game. I'm back in the game. And so they
I'm
move
back.
right past that right. They're unstuck.
Do you think sometimes maybe changing, the scenery and that helps?
Yeah, it does, but also time of the day. Sometimes like we're a little fresher in the morning. And also let me just say this: I've written some very painful books. People who've had their children die young, precede them in death. The 9/11, I wrote the widow's story about how she found out. I mean, there's some very, and I've had authors have to stop and go cry or come back, and I've taken a risk and said, let me play with some words that I think. Lord knows I can't begin to totally empathize. And they'll say, that's it. That's what I'm trying. But I couldn't, it's just too hurtful for me to do it. So for all those scenarios, sometimes you take a deep breath, you come back to it. But what I like is I'll always encourage all come back. If today is, let's hang up. It's not a problem. We don't have to write today, but tomorrow. And sure enough, something about time, the time of day, what's going on in their lives, they come back and we pick up where we left off.
Awesome. Now, as we're talking here, I don't know if I could ever ghostwrite for someone. I may not like what they're saying, but what inspired you to become a ghostwriter, and what skills does someone need to do so?
Well, first, let me just say I have not accepted every author, but I can honestly say maybe three of all the people who have come to me to help write their book. So I would not just, I'm a ghostwriter. What do you need written? And we just work it through, and it has no point or no purpose, or I know up front there's no market or something. I'll never do that. I mean, I just have too much integrity. But that aside, what I do know is that my gift, for example, is dialogue and description. And those are the things that make people turn the page. Even in nonfiction, when you're talking about a topic that's very, I don't want to say dry, but it's very exact, it's very specific, you still need some color, some flair. Put yourself somewhere in it, or put some human emotion, attach something so the reader can say, I can relate. That's what makes it worthwhile. So because I'll do dialogue, it's time for somebody to speak and you have no speaking, or you have only dialogue and you have to give the reader a chance to go, he said, she said, he said. You got to be able to. So I'm good because I'm old and I've done it for a long time. So I provide the balance. And that's the thing that makes the reader say, I couldn't put your book down, couldn't put it down. And so, and just three things I did make a little note. To be a ghostwriter, number one, you have to have a really good vocabulary. You've got to have lots and lots of words in your repertory. So if this doesn't work, I got a bunch more with little nuances. I'm a walking thesaurus. And where I don't know, go to a thesaurus. That's one. You have to have imagination. You want me to say it a little differently. I can do that. I'm supposed to be able to do that. And also excellent grammar. If you are not a really strong writer, good grammar, good syntax, if you don't have that, I had 6 years of Latin, not because I chose it, it just came to me. But that put me in perfect shape for the SATs. And so my vocabulary and my sentence structure are just really, and I do it when people talk, I'm, using grammar, and I have to stop myself and say, let's just be social and that kind of thing. But you need those qualities: creativity, a great vocabulary, and really strong grammar skills. Without those, don't become a ghostwriter.
So how do you make sure when you're ghostwriting to honor their signature, honor their essence, their tone, their voice, their style? How important is that? Are you just channeling somebody else's story? Where's the balance between telling their story and keeping their voice and tone and style, and like editors, also tightening it up?
Well, you remember when I said I'm the midwife? It matters to me what's important to you. So when I start working with an author, we're strangers at first, but there's a moment where I'm in your head, and I get to know it and you get to know it. There's that moment where I could leave you and I can write for you and give you something, and you'll say, oh my gosh. I mean, everybody seems to say it. If you look on my website at all the little testimonials, they're about things like that. But it is your book and you have to love it. If you have a passion about a particular character, and I personally think this other character has more, no, it is your book. I respect that. And I can still work to make it really pop, as they say, to make it really pop. So the authors are happy because it is what they wanted. But I make sure that it's grammatically sound, it has polish, that a reader can follow from the first page to the last page. That's important to me. And then they're confident when they then go on and publish. Go ahead and publish.
Awesome. Now, Dr. Ruth, you are the founder and CEO of Waverly Way, which is a for-profit organization. How did that come about, and why that name?
Well, my husband's name was Waverly Lee Baskerville Jr. And when I met him in college, I saw this man walk across the campus, and I fell in love, just like in the movies, with the bells and the whistles. And I remember saying to my mom and my dad, I think he's rich, with a name like that. And he had these 7 $20 bills, which I didn't know. And he wined and dined me for 3 days and then said, that's the end. I'm poor. But it was too late. We were in love and we built a life. And he was a Wall Street guy, a corporate tax specialist, but he had a way of demanding excellence. And so there I was yet again, here I am writing, I'm ghostwriting, and Waverly's Way dropped. Waverly's Way. And it was just amazing. I conferred with my daughter about, this is her dad, my husband, and it began to click, click, click. And it was tutoring. Who are we helping? The underserved. What grades? Well, kindergarten, but we can go all the way up to to a doctorate because I can take care of that. And so GED, graduate school, third grade, what do you need today? What's troubling you that the teacher can't come back and pick you up? And then when COVID hit, Waverly's Way kind of really took off because now we have Zoom. So now I'm in like 5 states, which never would have happened if I was only in Central Florida at a site. And sure enough, to a person, we have data to prove, we have testimonials, people pass. And with that comes that self-confidence that says, I can do this. I don't have to just be a failure at age 8. They pass the state test, they pass their grade, they graduate, they're promoted. And so Waverly's Way is academic excellence for everyone. It's a piece of the American dream that all of us could have. So that's really what it is. And literally, it's any learner from kindergarten.
You know, there's a saint that once said, service to man is service to God. And I can't help but think that that service has also helped your career. Is that true?
It is. You know, in terms of God, I was a church goer. I was a Bible scholar. You know, I read the Bible through, but I was probably reading it like a novel as opposed to the heart of what you're supposed to get. How do you live on this planet? How do you respect the dignity and sanctity of everybody around you? If you just followed the biblical principles, you wouldn't even need any laws, wouldn't need any of that. So there is that piece. But my own integrity, just the way I was raised, you know, your word is your bond. If you commit to something, unless you're dead or bleeding, you're there. Those kinds of old-fashioned principles that I've just lived my life by. And then since becoming a widow, suddenly my spirituality just took in another direction. And I think in retrospect, somewhere along these 10 years, I realized that God was really saying, because I went through the whole thing of, why did you take him? You know, we were a team. I did all that. And I came to realize, God, I need more from you. You were too comfortable on his arm. Life was too good. I needed you to hit the bottom so that I could lift you. And all of the stuff I'm doing now, the way I'm living my life, it probably wouldn't be happening because I was Waverly's wife. So from Waverly's Way to writing to ghostwriting, I feel like I've actually elevated, not by choice, you know, but here I am, and I am living, you know, in today. I'm walking where my feet are taking me, and I just feel like I'm in a great place.
Well, you know, sometimes it does. I know this as a therapist. Sometimes it takes pain to get you moving, right? And walking. So we're coming, let's say, finally, my final question is, and I'd like you to sum up, if you would. You often hear that there are as many starving authors as there are starving artists. In summary, what does it really take? What's the bottom line to become a profitable, best-selling author?
Well, I tell you, in my circle, you know, I've sold about 3,000 books. And so around people who know me say, wow, but best-selling author, that 500,000 books, that circuit and so on, I've not achieved that, although I've won gold and silver medals. And I encourage every single author to get out there, compete, put your book up, let the strangers tell you that it's worth this, and put that sticker on your book that says, I'm an award-winning author. But to be a bestseller, or whether it's a small in your circle or to be a gigantic best-selling author, that you got to stick with it. You have to make it a priority. You have to keep writing. When you're finished with one, you have inspiration for another. You don't quit. You keep your name out there. You go to, like, this particular church, they want a Women's Day speaker. Someone else is looking for a panelist. You go to these things. Sometimes you get paid, sometimes not, but you keep pushing because at some point, you know, people will say, that Dr. Ruth, that I know that she has a value. She can be of use to me in this and this and this. And people will seek you out and you rise that way. So it's, again, perspiration, a lot of it. But until then, until you become that I would say you do need a steady job. I mean, I was an educator for 46 plus years. I retired 3 times, and my mainstay was my job. Never become a starving author. There's nothing glorious about starving. In fact, you lose your inspiration. So have something that's steady, do that, but never give up your passion until you can have it. You have 2 feet in 2 places, till you can comfortably step away, which is where I am now, and put both feet in that passion, the thing I really live for. That's what
And
I would
the
say.
truth of that is, I've known a lot of quote unquote starving artists, but they've done just what you said. They keep a steady job, but they keep the passion up. They keep writing, or going to auditions. So that's some very, very solid advice. Thank you, Mia.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Ruth. We're coming to the close of our show, and we hope we've provided some insights to enrich your writing or become or continue to be more successful author who inspire readers locally and worldwide. Dr. Ruth, any final words of wisdom?
Well, I tell you, I thank you so much for thinking of me, for bringing me onto this magnificent show. I happen to know all the people behind the scene. It's kind of like coming home. And I just so appreciate the opportunity to talk about these things that mean a lot. If people feel like they have a book in them, as I mentioned about sharing center stage, I do. My website, www.excellence.org. My email, Waverly Ruth, Baskerville at AOL. That's an easy one. Get in touch with me. I would talk to anybody about anything at any time. And if it turns out that we have business together, so be it. But to share or to give encouragement, I'm there. And if you need tutoring, don't wait. Come to Waverly's Way. It's all on the website. All of the services of Waverly's Way. They're all in one bundle. I just encourage people, don't suffer. Go ahead and take that step. Write that book. Get that tutoring help. Get that degree, that promotion. Help your child, your grandchild, or yourself. That's what I would say. And I thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruth. Lenny, what have we learned?
I took notes, and this was a class. This was a master class. I'll try to cover up some of the things, but who needs to hear your story? Okay. And if you want it to resonate with people, it's your pain points that you got to make clear. You got to be authentic in your soul. Okay. Um, if you are at the point of actually having a book ready to be published and it's done, you got to have a graphic designer do your cover, your back cover, and your front cover, and be prepared to pay for it. Branding. Hey, t-shirts, mugs, pens, bookends, bookmarks. Your branding it has to have legs. What does that mean? It means you have to speak about it. You got your book has to speak like it's a body. So you got to get your book in other people's eyesight. That's the point, having legs. You got to get it in other people's eyesight. Audio books, it's a big market now. So many of us are old school, but the truth is, a lot of people they don't want to read. They might be riding in the car. So that's 2 more legs that you can put on the sale of your books, and it's a different demographic. So hey, why not expand to that? Stories. You got to use all 5 senses. Colorful language. Uh, you know how we say in the community, yeah, I can feel it. You see what I'm saying? You know, slow it down. Bring the reader in, carry the reader forward. And that's what becomes a page turner. Obstacles, well, one of the ways to get through obstacles in your writing is you have to have a pure heart. Don't be pompous, be honorable, love, and pray. So, being a good human being is part of becoming a good author. Uh, the King's English, well, sometimes dialect is appropriate. Uh, the main point is do it where it's appropriate. Okay. Uh, Authenticity. Okay. it's so important that in your writing, people will love you if you're authentic. Okay, when you're telling your story, that's what connects with readers. Mentors connect with writers. Find some writers. You know, uh, you got to nudge them with a little email, a little contact, but stay in touch with writers. Writer's block. It's quite common, but uh, you have to, in fact, uh, uh, turn off the phone sometimes. When are you fresher? That's when you write. Uh, you need to carry your pen and your pad and be jotting things down. And sooner or later, when you're ready to say something, the words will come to you. When you're ready to turn off the phone, as Doctor said, then something will come to you. But you got to keep your pad, your pencil, your notes. Nowadays, people like to write notes on their cell phone. It's okay, as long as you're writing them. Ghostwriting, well, you're not going to accept every author, okay? Because, is there a market for it? But you want to find out what's that person's gift, uh, and you have to use a lot of dialogue and emotion to help people relate to the writing. Uh, so, you also have to have a good vocabulary, meaning you should be a walking thesaurus. You have to have imagination, okay, and excellent grammar. Those are givens when you become a ghostwriter. Um, so, uh, you got to get in your writer's head, uh, but in the final analysis, it's their book, and you got to remember that it's not your book; it's their book. Waverly Place or Waverly, the company that Dr. Ruth set up. Uh, it's all about commitment, integrity, spirituality, uh, and God needs more from us, she said. So give it. Meaning, when you do that, your career will mushroom just like Dr. Ruth's career mushroom. Okay. And finally, the starving artist or the starving author. Uh, you, Doctor, you mentioned something profound to me. Uh, you may not be a bestseller around the globe, but you can be the bestseller in your circle. Okay. But wherever you're at, stick with it. Make it a priority. Keep writing. A writer has to write. Uh, get your name out there. There are panels and speakers, and keep at it. Don't give up. Uh, Live your passion. Those are some wise words. Thank you so much, Dr. Ruth.
Well, Lenny,
Thank you.
you get an A+ for that one.
Annie, wow.
Wow. You was paying attention.
Oh, well, how could I not? Because Dr. Ruth used the very thing she's telling us to use in answering
Mm,
our questions. The proof of the pudding is in the eating.
yes, definitely. Now, Lenny, you have it coming in January 2022. You have a special virtual book launch and party coming, and it's about your book, The Disease is the Cure, and your work as a soul therapist. Please share a little bit about that.
Well, first, let me say that this show itself is certainly going to help me in marketing my book that's already out there. But the book, The Disease is the Cure, is not just about physical illness. It's about anything that, as they say on the street, this is your ease, your ease. It leads to upset or suffering in your affairs of life, your relationships, or socially. And if you want to get a free test of how to turn dis-ease or suffering into medicine or recovery, that's my specialty. For a free strategy session, just text me or call me at 347 989 4147. 347 989 4147. I'm like Dr. Ruth. I welcome calls because you know what? If you don't want to answer the phone, you don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lenny. And remember, please join the conversation on the next Glow 365. Our special guest will be Dr. Donald Tate of Dr. Donald Tate and Associate. He is a grief recovery specialist who will be sharing how to get relief out of grief by flipping the script on Tuesday, November the 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daytime. Also, remember to check us out online at kumagazine.com and check out the current issue of KU Magazine featuring Reverend Dr. Karen Green and all our featured authors as well. And don't forget to also visit it on Facebook and Instagram at Official KUO Magazine. And subscribe and watch all our previous shows on YouTube at Official KUO Magazine and Official Women of Culture. And that culture is spelt with a K. I would like to thank our special guest, Dr. Ruth Baskerville. Again, you can visit her online at www.www.excellence.org. And I would also like to thank my co-host, Lenny Burge, and to our technical director, Mr. Gucciatelli Cooge, as I know him as, Coily, and to you, the viewers. I am Coach Mia, coming to you from McCoy, Florida. Thank you all, and also viewing this Inspiring Authors and tuning in today. Until next time, continue to stay safe and well.